Welcome to the school podcast. This is Frank. I'm here with Don and John R. here. Appreciate you guys tuning in. I got to apologize ahead of time. I'm working at half speed. I've been up for 28, 29 straight hours. I just had a baby last night.
Yeah, Frank the daddy.
That's cool.
That's what we're talking about.
Beautiful baby girl, 6 pounds, 6 ounces. She was born at 7:50 last night, and she's just awesome.
Oh, she's beautiful.
She's so cool. And so only one of us, me and Sadie's mom, can be in like the recovery room at one time. So I stepped away for a couple hours. So mainly so that she could spend time with her, but then I also just linked it up so I could do the podcast.
Yeah.
I was originally going to go home and like take a nap for a little bit, but I just figured I'd, come here. This is better.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Congratulations.
So bear with me. Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, you guys can, relate. You got a couple kids, and Don, you're raising kids.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, so, everyone, obviously we'll have John introduce himself here in a moment. I'm Don Coleman. I'm a pro-life recovering alcoholic and addict, and that's not political. I mean, pro-life straight up when it comes to alcoholics and addicts. We're dying every day.
Yeah.
And so the whole thing here is that's one of my new things. I'm pro-life when it comes to that. And so, everything I can do to help spread the message and maybe hope one fewer of us dies today. You know what I mean? And more of us, and even better, more of us get that spark of hope to want to come alive. You know what I mean? And so that's one of the reasons we have John on here today is, we want to hear what John's got a great story, and we'd look to hear a lot about it. So you want to introduce yourself?
I'm grateful to be here. My name is John Red. I am in recovery. I'm a drug addict and an alcoholic.
Me too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Amen.
Yeah.
I have been given the gift of a new life today, a life that I am so happy about. I couldn't be happier for you, Frank.
Thank you so much.
That is awesome. I have 4 kids, older, but recovery has given me the opportunity. I think that there's so many things I took for granted for a while. And what happened for me in recovery is I actually had the opportunity to do the things dads get to do in this life. And when I was in my disease, I didn't have that opportunity. So now you get to be a part of like your daughter's birth, and you get to be a part of doing the things that dads get to do. Couldn't be happier for you.
Can't even describe it because I hear so many stories of people that get sober, fathers in addiction that are like, oh, I wasn't there for my kid's birth, or, I came in drunk, I don't even remember it, or blah, blah, blah. And, just being sober and being in, not just sober, but in recovery allowed me to be there for all of it and to just be there for the future and just, everything that I have coming up and she has coming up and, this future we have together is, father, daughter, and get to be there. And it's funny because like a lot of people, like my mom, and well, not so much my mom, but like more like my aunt and a family friend are like, oh, they got me all these baby books. Like, have you been reading the baby books? Have you been doing this? Have you been doing that? I'm like, yeah, I got them. I like looked through a couple, but the main thing that's prepared me for being a father is being in recovery.
Yes.
Showing up today, right? Like all the principles that come along with 12-step programs and honesty and accountability and being forthright and like, having integrity, right?
Yeah. With Jersey, man, she never, ever, ever needs to see her father high or drunk.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's such a blessing. And I just need to say that having known you for as long as I have, she's extremely lucky to have you as a dad, man. Like,
I appreciate that.
You're blessed to have her, and she's extremely lucky to have you, man. Like,
it's exciting.
It's so cool. I'm so happy for you.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
No, thank you.
I kind of have one of those stories in that I have 4 kids and they're older.
Right.
But for me, in part of one of those stories, I actually wasn't sober until my twins turned 15. And so I missed out on a lot of it. And I've got kind of ideas on that. So I got a question that says, what's ARDU?
From Paul Pincaturo.
Hi, Paul.
Paul Pincaturo, yeah.
Yeah, so I
butchered the name.
Sorry, Paul.
I work at a place called ARDU. ARDU is in Provo, Utah, and it is a detox and residential facility. It's a beautiful place down there, and we do a lot to help people who struggle with this disease, help them get well, and help them get on the path of recovery. And so I'm grateful that now I've got an opportunity to work in this field. and I'm grateful to have an opportunity to kind of recover out loud. So I work at
like
ARDU.
that.
I do a lot of the business development there, and I kind of just help spread the message that recovery is real and that people can get well.
Yeah.
But great question. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I can talk more about what we do there later.
Oh yeah, it's a great program.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I want to hear more about your story as a father, like what you were
Yeah.
getting into.
Okay. Well, so what happened in my life is that I'll kind of just I'll give you the quick, and then you can stop me at any point and get some more
Yeah,
direction. So
absolutely.
I went to treatment the first time when I was 19 years old. And after treatment, I really enjoyed having a feel of what people most honest life. I felt I'd always been a bit of a black sheep. And what had happened in my life is I kind of found my tribe. And so after that, I went and got a degree in psychology, graduate school of social work to become a licensed substance abuse counselor. And I thought
Back when it was an LSAC, right?
yeah, back when it was an LSAC.
Yeah.
Exactly. So this was a long time ago. This was 97.
Yeah.
If it tells you how old I am. So I went and got all the credentials for that, got married, decided to start a family, went and got an MBA, and went a totally different
With you
career
on that
path.
one, baby.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
Went a different career path. And then what happened in my life, I had a 2-year-old. I graduated. I was getting like what I thought would be my dream job in medical sales.
Yeah.
My wife was 7 months pregnant with twins, and I got diagnosed with stage 4 thyroid cancer.
Ooh,
And so I remember, I'll kind of take you to like the night I found out. I'll take you to how this all happened. We were moving down to Vegas, and I'd gone to see the doctor. The doctor called me. It was actually St. Patrick's Day of 2003. And he called me at 5:45 that night and said, "Hey, I got your blood work back, and the results came back suspicious." I didn't know what suspicious meant, so I just thought, man,
Nor would I.
Yeah.
yeah. Well,
I'd be like, Doc, what are you talking about?
Right.
my response is, okay, cool. Like, what does suspicious mean? Like,
Yeah.
help me here. And he said, you have cancer, and I need you to be in first thing tomorrow morning. So I went in the next morning again. My oldest was getting ready to turn 3. My wife was 7 months pregnant with the twins. And I went in the next morning, and he goes, it's metastasized throughout your neck and your lymph nodes. I asked him what we were really looking at, and he said, worst case scenario, we're probably giving you like 6 months. And then after he said that, I couldn't hear a single thing he said. And I went right in.
You just kind of went blank.
I went blank. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just thought all I heard was 6 months. And I thought, man, what's going to happen? Like, who's going to raise my kids? Like, what's going to happen in my world? And I went in for the surgery, and they severed a spinal accessory nerve accidentally. And I got OxyContin after the surgery in 2003. And I'd already been to treatment for like an opioid addiction. And what happened is with this disease, it just kind of triggered it, and I was off to the races. And so,
And what better excuse than I have cancer? Like
Yeah.
I need pain, and then they severed a nerve. I
Yeah.
need pain pills.
and it's what they gave me. For me, it worked a little differently, though. I think that when I look back at that, I realized that I have no idea how much pain I was even in.
Yeah.
It was within 24 hours, I was taking those pills to fix kind of this emotional disease that was going on with me, and to treat the fear and everything else. So I remember the twins being born. I wasn't sober. And the first time I was ever sober on their birthdays, the day they turned 15. And I'm going to tell you, like, if we've got a chance to talk about that, that's
Wherever you want to take it, man.
Yeah.
that was probably the best night of my life. And so recovery's given me a lot of things. I do a lot with 12-step programs. And I love the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous.
Absolutely. That's
And-
where I met you. Is in
Yes.
a men's meeting of AA.
In a men's meeting
my
of
home
AA.
group.
Absolutely.
How long has he been going to that group? How long have you been going to that?
About
group?
3 years.
Yeah.
So has he been in there when we've been in there?
Yeah.
I
On
just-
and off.
Yeah, on and
Okay,
off.
gotcha.
On and off
You
for
haven't
2
been
years.
there
I
forever.
haven't been there in a bit.
Yeah.
I still thought it was on COVID
Exactly,
mode.
yeah.
So I'll be there Wednesday.
Yeah.
It's a great group.
Yeah.
It's a great group.
As
It is.
Greg
Oh, it's my
said,
favorite group.
we
Yeah, it's
had
still my
Greg
home group.
come in
Yeah.
and speak a couple weeks ago, and he's
Awesome.
like, "It's the best meeting in Utah, the best
I agree.
recovery in Utah." I think it's up there for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely up there.
Yeah.
So that's my favorite group. And there's a part in the big book. This is where I was going with this, is that it says, with this disease goes an annihilation of all things worthwhile in life.
Mhm.
And it engulfs all whose lives touch the sufferers, which means that unintentionally, I engulfed everybody in my life in this disease. Um, the beautiful part that I've found to be true in my life is that when I got sober, um, when I brought God into it, when I connected that way, He had a way of engulfing everybody in my life in recovery. And my life today is more beautiful than it's ever been.
Yeah.
And it's simply because I focus on staying sober. When I stay sober, I get all these other gifts.
Yep. Promises come true.
Oh, all of them.
Yep.
All of them. Yeah. So I guess we were at what, like the best day, like so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
the 15th birthday.
15th
right.
birthday.
Yeah,
So,
they hadn't been
so-
sober. They hadn't seen you sober for 15
no,
years, right?
Well, no.
Or
and
maybe
so-
in spurts.
Yeah, in spurts. And I was like a high functioning guy until I wasn't. Like, it happens that way. I kept really good jobs and I did well until I couldn't.
What's funny about this to me is, like, mind you, that you were a licensed, substance counselor, right?
Oh yeah.
And you had a master's and, your MBA, and,
Oh,
you
yeah.
had all the credentials, the scholastic credentials to help people with this problem and this disease, but you yourself couldn't get out of it.
Oh no, it just made me sick. I'm telling you, it's a pretty messed up place when you're sitting there identifying triggers in your own head and you've got no one to really talk it through with.
And you already know your relapse cycle.
I already know the relapse cycle. I know what's happening. I know whether a drug's physically addicted versus mentally and what percentages it is and how
Sure.
to get off and detox myself. And I did that for 14 years. And before I get into my twins' 15th birthday, maybe I'll tell you like where things really changed.
Yeah,
If that's okay.
absolutely.
Hold on real quick. Michael Jolly, it's in Bountiful, Utah. And it's
a Wednesday night men's meeting at
It's
8 p.m.
Yeah, at the Presbyterian Church.
Phenomenal.
Or is it Presbyterian or the Baptist? First
It's
Baptist.
Presbyterian.
I think it's First Baptist Church on Orchard.
It's on Orchard. Yeah, it's
In Bountiful.
1950. It's 1950 or 1850 Orchard Lane.
Yeah.
It's a great meeting.
Bountiful Men's Group Wednesday nights. Yeah.
It's a great meeting. So what happened in my life? So it was 2017, and I hadn't held it together for so long. It was sad. We were going on a family vacation in Newport Beach with my in-laws and my family.
Ooh.
And I love Newport. It's like one
Sure.
of my favorite places on
That's right.
earth.
I lived there for years.
Okay, yeah. So
But I'm saying when you're there with your in-laws, that's
Yeah.
Oh, no.
and they're
my father-in-law, like
I've
he
been
and
in
I
that
actually
mode.
went to Sturgis before. Like we're good buddies.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And so I was super excited about the trip. And it was roughly about 2 days before the vacation that I got uninvited. And I was a guy who was just, my self-pity was so heavy at the time that it literally suffocated the air out of the room whenever people were around me.
Right.
Mhm.
And I couldn't see it. I couldn't see it. I thought life had just dealt me a bad deck of cards. And so I got uninvited. I was home alone. I was with the dog. Couldn't figure out like what I was doing in my life. And those days where, this is probably the only way I know how to explain it. Like you wake up and the world is so heavy. Like it is so heavy. It's never been that heavy. And like you would do anything to get out of it. And then you wake up the next morning and it's worse.
Yeah.
And I was in the middle of that.
Hmm.
And I was home and I didn't know what options I had. And so like my last resort was I actually locked all the doors in the house. And I don't know why I did this because nobody would come visit me. I wasn't.
This was opiates you were on at the time still?
Yeah, opiates, and I was drinking heavily.
Okay, gotcha.
And
And your family had already left for
my
the
family
vacation.
left. It was me and the dog.
Right.
Enjoying it without
Tortino's
you.
Pizza. Yeah.
Yeah. Those dollar pizzas, or they used to be.
Exactly.
$2 now.
Exactly. That's where I was. And I went down in the basement and I just sat on this bed and I just said, God, if there's a way out of this, please help me. And what happened in my life at that time was pretty remarkable. Within 3 days, the job I was barely holding on to, they asked me not to come in anymore. My wife came back from Newport and she had this resolve on her face that I'd never seen. And she just looked at me and said, man, I don't care if we stay married or get divorced. You got to go.
Yeah.
I couldn't get my kids to really look at me. I went to my parents' house and they'd been so helpful, but they just looked at me and said, "We don't know how to help you anymore." And then a day later, I had a chance to get into rehab. And for me, I just think that sometimes when we think,
Are you still cancer this whole time, or
well, I got
get
cancer free in
remission?
07 and then re-diagnosed a couple years later.
Okay.
And so it's been on and off. I've had surgeries at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, Huntsman Cancer. Like,
Sure.
I've had multiple
All
surgeries.
the places.
All, yeah, the big places. And I had this chance to go to rehab. And so now in my world, I'm pretty convinced that sometimes when we think our world's falling apart, it's God's way of bringing it together.
So I
We're
think
just
that's
in the middle of it. We can't see it
remarkable.
because that's what happened in my life. I thought everything had fallen apart, and really it was just the start of something beautiful.
It was giving you. It was the biggest opportunity.
Absolutely.
In the biggest problems lie the biggest opportunities in this
Absolutely.
world. I feel that way.
I love how you like that unfolded too. Even just you saying it, you ask God for help. Like, please, if there's anything, just, help me. And then you say, then you lost your job, and Don was like, ooh. And in my mind, I was like, yes, like true. Here's the gifts that he's given you.
Yeah.
But in the time, it
I'm
doesn't
just relating
look
because
like
our stories are so similar. You have no
Yeah.
idea, minus
Okay.
the cancer part. But
it's
Yeah.
just
going.
that gift of desperation, though, because so
Absolutely.
many people need to be in that rock bottom place in order
You're
to
right.
get help. Because it's like if your job had kept you, and then your wife is like, oh, let's try this, and everyone is like, you wouldn't have really done anything. You'd be like, oh, well, things are all right, and then you would have just kept like slowly going downhill, right?
If
So-
I had one way out, so my wife,
You'd be enabled.
yeah,
You'd feel
I would have been
enablement.
able, and I would have tried to hold on to it. My wife's like heard me share this a few times, and I'm giving you my perspective of it. And the other day, this is kind of funny. She pulled me aside and she goes, "You know what? You keep saying you were uninvited on the vacation." She goes, "I don't think you know this. You were never really invited to start with." And I'm like,
You were just assuming because,
Yeah, I was
hey, look, I got my
assuming 'cause
MBA. I'm an
everyone was going.
LSAC. Like, I know all this stuff. So even though I'm in addiction, like, don't worry, guys, I got this.
Yeah.
And even though I'm stuck in there out of the room, nobody knows it. And you guys are going on a trip. Of course, I'm invited.
Yeah,
like, I'm
why
coming.
not?
And then they simply reminded you that you were not invited.
Yeah.
Or reminded, but you think they're being told for the first time
Yeah,
Right.
when you never got an invitation.
Yeah, 3 years sober, I'm realizing I was never invited to start
Exactly.
I love it.
with. She just made it official a couple of days before we were going to leave.
And thank
So-
God she did, man.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was. I was convinced that things were falling apart, and I just couldn't see the big picture. I couldn't see how everything was coming together at that point. And so I went into treatment. I started on this path. For me, the place I went, they told me that if I wanted to stay sober, I'd go get a job at Costco. And of course, I thought, man, I'm way too important.
I'm better
to
than
work
that.
at-
Yeah.
to work at Costco. And then the guy just pulled me aside and said, "Look, if you want to stay sober, you'll get a job at Costco." And
Do whatever it takes.
And so within 2 days, I had applied at Costco. I'm going to tell you, probably best job I ever had. But I was trying to rebuild my life, and I was working there, and I was just trying to be a sober person, which was tough for me because it'd been so many years without doing it. And what happened was working at Costco, my twins were earning years. They wanted to have a party at Classic Skate.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so you've been to Classic
Oh,
Skate.
which one? The one out south or the one up north?
The one in Layton.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so-
we went there not too long ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so my
Yeah.
kids love it. Like for me, it's kind of like I don't know. Maybe the best way of saying it's like my version of hell, like the strobe lights.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm just.
I'd enjoy it.
I
The
just
arcades on the side.
Sorry, Henderson's. Like I know the folks who own it. And I love those guys. It's just not for me.
Right, right.
And so but they wanted to go, and so I was going there, and I was just thinking how miserable the night was going to be. I could barely afford the boxes of Little Caesar's pizza that I showed up with. And I thought, man, this is like, because I'd been so active in my disease for so long, I didn't have a good job. I didn't have a way of like getting them gifts. And I remember walking in and I remember thinking, man, maybe tonight's not about you. Like just go and have a good night.
Yeah.
And so I went in and I put a smile on my face. I put on roller skates. I'm 6'3". I'm not that coordinated.
Yeah.
So it's like if you can kind of picture a giraffe going around in strobe lights, just splashing out all the time. I had I just smiled the whole time, and I went home and I went to bed. And at first, my son Charlie woke me up and he said, "Dad, that's the best birthday I've ever had.
Wow.
And then my
That's so
daughter
cool.
Molly came in 30 minutes later and woke me up and said, Dad, that's the best birthday I ever had. And I'd had these.
All they wanted was you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had made money, so I'd always try to get them a nice gift that they didn't want and the nicest version of it. And I never realized that how powerful it is just to show up and be a part of it. And it's a night I'll never forget. So as you say, you have an opportunity to be a dad and to
Right.
be a sober dad. I got that opportunity when my twins turned 15 on their birthday. I got to be there as a sober dad.
That's
And,
so cool. That brings tears to my
That's
eyes,
so
man. It's so,
powerful, man.
yeah.
it-
And it shows you it's never too late. It's not like,
no,
or this relationship is just ruined because their whole child. Like, I mean, they came to you and said, "This is the best birthday I've ever had." Like, I
Yeah.
think that's so beautiful.
And it wasn't monetary.
Yeah.
It wasn't the
No.
big gifts you brought. You brought a Little Caesars $5 pizza.
Right.
You know
Three
what
of
I mean?
them.
3 of them. Okay, so $15.
Exactly.
You know, and just yourself, man. Just your grace
Yeah.
and the grace of recovery.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now I've got a great relationship with these guys in my life. And part
And
of,
two, you're absolutely right. He says the greatest gift we can give our family is sobriety. Great message.
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you. Like right on
Rock.
God, right?
Mhm.
And so for me, now I get an opportunity to like be there in my kids' lives. Like I've been asked to go to their health class at their high school every year. And I go twice a year and I talk to the kids about what this disease is like. And it's one of my favorite experiences because my twins are there in the room and I get up there and I say, okay, guys, what does an addict and an alcoholic look like? And you see all these like sophomores in high school say, oh yeah, and
Strung out
absolutely.
on the side of the road.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Then I say, okay, my name's John Redd and I'm an addict and alcoholic. And then I watch half of them go like this because they can't even look me in the eye.
They're
And I'm like, no,
embarrassed.
you're all right. Like, yeah,
You're
let's-
good. I'm
let's
proud.
talk about this. Yeah.
Yeah.
But my kids are in the room. My kids come to that class because they're proud of their dad and they've seen what's happened. And, I suffered alone, kind of in silence, but I brought them all into it. And now quite literally, we recover as a family.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing.
That is amazing.
Yeah. It's just, I can't, like I said, I told you at the beginning, I cannot believe the life I have today.
I just went and helped Dustin, was it last week or the week before, teach some classes at the high school at Layton High. And it was so cool. Did a bunch of health classes there and just did a presentation and talked to him. And it was just so interesting because it's like, I know this disease, I know my story, I know what we teach here at SOAR, but I'm not necessarily speaking to addicts or alcoholics. I'm speaking to high school kids. So it's like, it's not like like I'm sharing in the AA meeting. It's not like I'm sharing my story and it's like, what's the message I want to get across? And so it's at the end of the day, I just talked to him, like told him about what happened to me. And I'm like, I'm not here to preach anything. I'm just here to tell you my story and then they give you some advice and how this can help you. Cause like the principles that we teach aren't specific to addicts or alcoholics.
No.
It's how to better your life. If like you're having a stressful situation or whatever's going on in your life that you need help with, right? Like there's a solution to be found within like, the pages of the AA book or, this lifestyle that we live in sobriety and recovery.
It's just how to be good people.
Right.
It's like you said, every single thing applies. I remember when I was in treatment, when I was in the 2-year TC, the Odyssey House, 2-year TC, they got me sober for the 7 years before I had my MBA, went into private equity, had my dream job, thought I was too good to relapse. Then, you know what I mean? So
I relate.
all that stuff. But I remember when my grandma was there and she was just sitting there and I was telling her about the program and she's like, honey, this sounds like something everybody in the world should do.
Yeah.
And it's again, this is not preaching. It's just anyone who's not even an alcoholic or an addict, pick up a big book and just see what it's talking about.
Right.
No,
because
I couldn't agree
it's
more.
how to just be a good person.
One of the things
know?
we were pointing out, we kind of boiled down like the little, 4-step inventory for these kids and, the way.
Oh, you did?
Well, yeah, but
Yeah.
just in the way that we're like, what are the things that cause you to be irritated most in your brain, right? And like people are throwing out things, school, or, when I get in a fight with my parents or this or my friend group, right? And it's like, okay. And then we pointed out how they're all like, hey, these are all fears and resentments and harms done to others, right?
Absolutely.
And it's like 99% or probably 100% of things that cause you to be irritated is like at the bottom of it is one of those things. And so we're like, hey, if there's a resentment, like, why don't you like look into that? Why don't you build some awareness around it? Why don't you see how you can make it better? If there's a part that you've played in it, like talking about fears, and it's hard to recognize fears. We talked about this,
especially at that age.
Oh,
all
at
that
pride.
age.
At any age, though.
True. No, you're right.
LT, talks about the 5 whys and like how you boil down to like what the true fear is. And I'm gonna tell that story and probably butcher it. So the 5 whys. Was it the Washington or the Jefferson Memorial? At some point, they were realizing that it was starting to crumble, right? And they're like, well, why is this starting to crumble? Like, let's look into this. Like, they opened up the blueprints and everything and saw what was going on, the maintenance. They're like, oh, it's because we're power washing this like every 2 weeks. And they're like, okay, well, we got to stop doing that. Well, why are we power washing it, right? And it's like, oh, well, because there's so much bird poop on it. Like, oh, okay, so they put up all these nets around it, and they tried to get all the birds.
Just jump to a solution so quick.
Exactly. Try to get all the birds off of it, and then, okay, yeah, now it looks ugly. There's all these bird nets, and everything's everywhere, and there's poop still getting on it. It's like, okay, back to the drawing board. Well, why are all the birds there, right? And it's like, oh, well, it turns out it's because they're spiders. And then, same thing, and then you just dig down, why? Eventually, they found out that there's spiders there because there's insects there. And they found out there were insects there because they were keeping the lights on like all night for too long. So they eventually adjusted the timing of the lights, and no more insects, no more spiders, no more bird poop, no more power washing. And it's fine. And so it's like you have to dig down why 5 times until this is the answer. And it's like that in your mind with decisions or with resentments or fears. And I find especially with fears, you might find like, well, why did I not do this today? It's, oh, because I didn't want to. Well, why didn't I want to? Oh, it's because I'm pissed off. Like, well, why? Well, I'm not actually pissed. I'm more feeling like hurt. Well, what is behind that? Oh, I'm actually afraid of being alone. Yeah. Right. And like you'll find so many things in life boil down to fears like that, but it's so hard to see in ourselves at any age, but especially for high school kids. So it's just cool, like trying to spark that little bit of awareness to get people thinking about it more,
Oh, I can't even tell you. I think that's the gift of having a sponsor in your life.
Yeah.
Like, cause I have someone in my life now that I can bounce stuff off of who's not as emotionally involved in my life as I am.
Yeah.
And because I'm so emotionally
and if they are, maybe get a new sponsor.
Yeah,
exactly.
Because I'm so emotionally
involved. I need to fix you.
I don't make good decisions. I do not make good decisions. I remember one time I had a resentment with my wife, and I went and met with my sponsor, and I was like, I felt like I wasn't being treated fairly, new recovery and where things go. And so I was sitting with my sponsor, and I was kind of explaining this resentment to him.
Right.
And I went off for like 5 minutes, and he just looked at me, and I thought, okay, I'm done. Now it's your turn. We're going to dogpile. So I'm waiting for him to, he just looked at me and he said, man, when's the last time you bought her flowers? And I thought to myself, ooh, today, I guess. And so
right now.
Yeah, right now.
In 5 minutes.
So I went to Costco, and I'm going to tell you, by the time I had purchased those flowers, I was no longer bugged. And I think it's all the AA principles. Like, if I can do something kind to be of service to someone else that takes me out of me, suddenly my world is okay.
Mm-hmm. Bingo.
And it was just as simple as like $12 for some flowers. And I'm like, but I can't see that. I'm so emotionally involved in my life. Like, I'm pretty involved in it.
Exactly.
And you're busy drinking.
I'm the protagonist, center stage.
Yeah, and you're busy, like they say with resentments, drinking poison, expecting the other person to die.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you're busy just doing
Yeah.
something completely illogical rather than getting outside of yourself. I got this tattoo of serotonin right here, and the reminder is to do something for someone else every day.
Yeah.
That generates serotonin actually too,
Absolutely.
which gets your brain working differently.
Absolutely.
Getting outside of yourself.
No, and I say this, but my wife's amazing. She's like,
She must be.
I had my 20-year wedding anniversary while I was in treatment. She came and visited that night. It was the first night we did like a couples process session. And you know how you kind of beat on yourself, and I was feeling really bad about being there, and I couldn't believe this is where life had become. And she just said, you know what, man, this is the best wedding gift you've ever given me. Thank you.
I know where you are, and I know that you're safe.
Yeah. Suddenly it was okay. Like, so it's been helpful to me to have like someone like her who's been on my side through this.
You know, it makes me feel like LT should be sitting in this chair, because LT, everyone that's watching this obviously knows, runs Recovering Addict right here. nonprofit, and it's all about, we recover better together. And he, every Tuesday night, he and his wife actually do a live show, and she was in the same situation. She was there throughout his addiction. She's not an addict herself, you know what I mean? And so, but it just, your story just reminds me of that, because it's and someone else that I just recently helped get into detox, and they finally, after 3 weekends in a row of going to detox, they're in a clean spot for a little bit. And they said kind of something similar to you. They said, what I was doing was I was literally taking all of my pain, and when I was drinking, I was taking it, and the people who loved me the most, I was literally putting all of my pain onto them so that I could just numb out, and they had to carry my burden. It's like when you said you suck the air out of a room, it's with our families. We do the most damage to our families, and the people who love us the most. It's terrible. And then we're mad at them for being upset with us or something.
Why do you care so much?
Why do you care so much? Yeah, this isn't your life, but meanwhile, your wife is having to see you every single night, or whenever she does see you, and wonder if you're going to make it. So
that makes sense. So it's always the closest, the ones that are closest to us that we hurt the most. Because even like, obviously when I was using, but even in recovery, it's like easy to be nice to the clerk at 7-Eleven and
so true.
Whatever, at Starbucks or the guy walking on the street. But then as soon as you get home, or like, the people you spend the most time with, you're just picking each other apart. God, like, why does this person have
I'm going to get my stuff off.
Exactly. Yeah.
I never thought about that. That's a really good point. It's like in public, it's always just niceties, and then you get home and say, why? Well, it shouldn't be the opposite. You should be nice to everyone, right?
Exactly,
work on yourself with a sponsor or whatever your recovery program is. But
that's the spiritual fitness, litmus test. Exactly.
Well, right? it tells us in the book, like it says, love and tolerance of others is our code.
Our code.
Yeah. And one of the things I love about that is when I read that, when I actually started thinking about that, I realized that love and tolerance is a choice. Like I used to think love was an emotion, and I felt it or I didn't, and I felt love for people or I didn't. And now I realize that I'm making the choice to love other people. And it's a verb. And love other people and to tolerate them by my actions.
It's an action word.
When I do the actions, I get the emotion for it. Right. So we had a question. Jake Brown asked, how long had you guys been sober? My sobriety date is August 24th of 2017. I'm a little over 3 years sober.
November 15th, 2016. So coming up on 4 here next month.
Yeah. And I'm 2.5. It's April 10th of 2018.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks for asking.
No, absolutely. It's so interesting to see that. And I don't know, just different lengths of sobriety, and then realizing that, there's so much weight and importance placed on that, but
it's one day at a time program.
Exactly.
It's one day at a time. It's in my ego. Sometimes I'll find myself being like, someone like would ask that when I was early in recovery, and I'd be like, I've been sober, 9 out of the last 11 years.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like,
you try to phrase it in a way that
it sounds like I have the most, but it's like, I'm proud for every day that I have, because I know
there be shame around how much time you're sober, right?
Well, and I'm one bad series of decisions away. And I know recovery and myself and my relapse cycle well enough to know that it's not just one decision, but one series of decisions away from going into that dark, nasty room of addiction. You know what I mean? And that which is in our house. If our house was a metaphor, if our life was a house, that room is a locked room. If we're in recovery, it's a locked room down the hall, and as long as we stay out of that room, we don't have to go in it, but it's a progressive illness. So the thing is, even though we're sober, you asked about our length of sobriety, even though we're sober for, me coming up on 4 years, even coming up on 3.
You just had 3.
You just had 3. Sorry. And then you coming up on 3.
Yeah.
Basically that room is basically, if it's a metaphor, it's filled with just like bacteria and like all this stuff growing, and it's getting worse and worse and worse. So even though we're sober, that room, if we choose to ever go inside it, is just so much worse than it ever was. And we've realized that anytime we've gone to relapse, anytime we've seen a little shiny key pop up in like a video game, you collect the key, right? And then you go find the door. It's like that can be a trigger, a bad relationship, a bad whatever, but that key will pop up. And that starts the series of decisions. You'll see it, then you're like, oh, I'm going to pick it up. I'm going to hold on to it. oh, now I'm going to actually go walk down that hallway. I'm just going to go look and see what inside the room is. I'm just going to see what the drugs look like. I'm going to go see if they're selling them on this corner or whatever. And then next thing you know, you use. And sad thing is why I say pro-life when it comes to recovery and alcoholics and addicts, when we go in that room, oftentimes we don't know if we're going to get out because that bacteria can like grow like vines and it can pull us in and just suck us and keep us in there. You know what I mean? And turn us around and it's pitch black and might not even be able to find the door again. And that's like why what we try to do is help find people's doors and reach in. And, you know, even just with this podcast, just reach in and show that, hey, there is a light, you know, and there's a hand out here. You can reach out to any of us, reach out to Recover and Addict, reach out to SOAR, and, you know, ideally try to at least give you a hand to grab onto. So sorry, that's my analogy, my metaphor. But my point is, even though we're sober, it is getting so much worse. That room is getting darker. Even in 20 years sobriety, you go back and relapse, you're going to be right back to the same use amount you were in almost no time. And then more, it's going to be so much worse than it was last time. You don't start back at ground one. Like, oh, I'm just going to start messing with. Frank, you should tell about I know people have heard of it. You're thinking about your blunt and like when you were drinking like a 40 every day, like when you were in recovery, kind of, you know, you weren't using heroin, but then you were like, oh, I'm going to drink a 40 every day, and how quickly that turned into something else.
It was just when I was in college for a while. This was like before I started getting into heroin and meth.
Okay,
I was still doing hard drugs, but I mean, like every day for 6 months, I'd wake up and drink a 40 of malt liquor and smoke a blunt, and that was just to get like sober for the day,
right?
Like and then California just to get to the baseline. And then like later on in the day, all right, now I need to get high.
Right.
Now I need to find other drugs. Right.
Right.
But I didn't know like that progression you're talking about is real. And, you know, that's a logical fallacy people have when they're like, you know, however much time I have sober, it's like,
I'm just going to dabble with it.
It's going to get better. It never gets better. Right.
It's so much worse. That room is so much darker and so much nastier.
In there. What I like about recovery, what I like about the program is that there are little things that we can do in a day to prevent that. And so the story that comes to mind for me is when I was actually in treatment, and it was my 20-year wedding anniversary. My wife came and we were there with the counselor, and the counselor said, "What is it you want to see out of John?" And Sonny said, "You know, I want him to never relapse and I want him to never use drugs again." And this guy just looked at her and started laughing.
Right.
And he said, he can't promise that.
Yeah.
Right.
But he said, what he can promise is that he'll be honest and transparent going forward. And if he's honest and transparent, you'll see it long before it ever happens. So if I now live in a way that is, so I made the commitment and now I get to be like an honest person today, which is like, for me, I was a guy who was so full of crap. I don't even know how to explain it. Like I could have gone to McDonald's on the way here to eat. And if you would have asked me, and if you liked Burger King, I would have told you Burger King.
Right.
Just like if the truth worked, I'd still give people a lie. And I don't know why I always did that, but today I get to be an honest person.
The book talks about that rigorous honesty. And it's basically in the beginning when it says like, rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed this. And it's like those that fail are like somewhat or somehow incapable of being honest.
Yeah, honest.
But if you're
and others, constitutionally incapable,
but if you can be honest, you got the best shot there is, right?
You can do it. If you can be honest, if you have that capability, you can do it.
Yeah.
If you want to, you can. And
it's not just a can, like you most likely will. Like
you got exactly
shot, like really good shot at it, right?
Yeah. Well, I think of what Don says in the meeting, right? Is he's like, you know, I'm not myself, but another gentleman. I'm Don. You know, I'm an alcoholic. You know, you don't have to drink again if you don't want to, and even if you do, you know what I mean. It's
he's my sponsor.
Oh yeah, awesome. I love that guy, man. Yeah. I love that guy.
Yeah. He said you don't have to drink or use drugs again if you don't want to.
And even if you do.
And even if you want to.
Even if you want
to. So
to.
true. Yeah. But you're right. You can and you will if you want to stay honest and you want to work a program. Every single person can.
There was this guy, Mark, that he went to this meeting I used to go to in Orange County, in Newport Beach, actually. But it just reminded me when you're talking about the length of time. And this guy had 23, 24 years. But in all of his shares, he'd always be like, well, if you woke up earlier than me today, you have more sobriety than me. Yeah. Just it's highlighting so cool. The importance of that every day. What are we doing today to maintain our spiritual program and our fitness, right? You're not going to survive off the food you ate last month or the water you drank last week. And the same goes with sobriety, you know?
No, I'm big
just because you did something nice a few days ago doesn't mean like, oh, well, I'm good today. Like, right?
Yeah. And
daily reprieve.
Daily reprieve means the world to me today.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I remember coming into the rooms initially when I was 19, like I told you, after I went to treatment. And I hadn't worked a step. I hadn't gotten involved. And I thought, man, my life's going to be more important than this. All I'm coming in is hearing these old dudes talk about not drinking. Um, and when I came back this time, I actually got to hear the music of AA, which is
Music of
not
AA.
about not talking about not drinking. It's talking about a way to live. And
AA's not
it
really
started-
about not
no,
drinking.
It's not,
Right.
well,
It's not-
step one mentions alcohol. After
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
we've got 6 steps that talk about God and talk about how to live our lives. And
Right.
when I came back to stay, I came back and I actually heard the message. And I will tell you that when I put my recovery first, because it is the most important thing to me in my life today, is being a sober member of society and living these recovery principles that I've been taught. And when I put that first, oddly enough, like my wife will think she comes first. My kids think they're most important to me. Somehow my job at ARDU thinks I'm all in.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm just a dude who's trying to stay sober in a day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when I stay sober and work these simple steps, I get such a
works.
beautiful life. I
Right.
can't even explain it.
Yeah. Isn't that so funny how that works? Like the minute you place your job ahead of your sobriety, or,
Wow.
maybe like your relationship with like, even like your wife or your kids, it's like, obviously it's like that sounds like it should be right. But then sooner or later, something will go off the rails and all of a sudden you wind up losing everything.
Well,
How did that work?
So my therapist, when I got sober this time, which again, dude, story's so similar. I was living in the Bay Area, going to the Golden Gate Bridge almost every week, trying to decide which light post I'm going to jump from.
Yeah.
And anyway, when I finally got in my therapy, I had a similar option where the opportunity to go into a treatment center came 2 times. I was saved by the Bridge Angels, and I was dressed in a business suit, thinking that I was tricking them, like, so they wouldn't talk to me, because it's this nonprofit that just walks up and down and makes it a point to talk to every single person and spread a positive message.
Awesome.
And I'm dressed in a business suit, like with my phone, pretending I'm on a call, like standing over to the post the light post, near the light post I thought I was going to jump from. And, and they just came and they're just like, hey, just want to let you know. And I'm on a call, so I tried to act all upset, even though there's no one on the phone.
Right.
I'm too important for you to
and then they're like,
interrupt.
we just want to let you know that there's people out there that care about you and love you, and it was enough to get me to stop. But when I did go into therapy, the thing that and I was putting my job and I was putting my team, I was putting the company I was running above everything. And it's something they told me that always sticks is whatever you put above your recovery is exactly what you're going to lose.
Yeah.
Right.
Like you put money above your recovery, you're going to lose all your money. You put say that again.
So whatever you put before your recovery will be the second thing you lose.
So what'll be
Because
the
when
first
you
thing?
lose your sobriety.
Okay. Yeah. True.
You lose
Very
your
true.
sobriety and then
agreed.
you lose
Yeah.
that
Of
next.
course. Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. So you always lose that the next thing. Yeah. After your recovery,
Yeah.
the first thing you lose after your
Thing you're
after
trying
sobriety.
to hold on to the tightest
Right.
is the thing you're going to lose.
Yeah. Don't elevate these things that don't matter. You know what I
No.
mean? It's
I think one funny little thing is our buddy, Greg says is like, there was this moment when he was getting sober where he realized he needed to put recovery number one. So he went home to his wife that night. He's like, honey, I need to put my recovery first. She's like, yeah, no, I know. And he's like, no, I need you to understand what that means.
yeah.
Like the seriousness and the implications of what I'm saying. Recovery comes number one for me. And she's like, I know. And he's like, and he always says this, honey, I need to tell you one more time so you understand.
Be crystal clear.
Crystal clear. Recovery is number one.
Like before you, baby.
Yeah, and she's all in, and it's just I love that, that realization and what that means. It's like if I need to go to this meeting tonight, I'm gonna go instead of a birthday party, instead of this.
Yeah.
If I need to meet with a sponsee or my sponsor, like that, it takes precedence, and because of that, everything else falls into place. And he's a beautiful husband, a beautiful father, a beautiful, employee, member of
Sure.
society, and everything like you were just saying, with, your family and ARDU. And it's just so funny how that works. It's AA is not a rational program, right?
No.
Right. Not at all.
A plus B equals C. It doesn't
No.
work like that. It's
Not at
not
all.
a self-help program either. It's a spiritual program of action.
Yeah.
And whatever that means, once you dive into it, there's some, music in the spheres that, just makes it all work out. And I love the beauty behind it and the principles behind it.
I do
I
too.
so
And
agree.
I love that it's not a self-help program, because if there was a way that I could have helped me, I would have.
Right.
Like
Yeah. You had all the tools.
I had
You
the
can help
tools.
others.
I tried. I read all the books, and all that happened in my life is I became sicker. And I think that we need each other in this. I've got a little analogy that I love that somebody shared with me a couple years back, and they said that, it's like you're walking down a sidewalk and you fall into this dark hole, and you see someone walking past, and you ask for help, and the guy says, "Sure, I'm a doctor." Writes a script, throws it down in the hole, says, "Come in the office on Friday at 11 and we'll talk. And walks off. And you think, man, I'm still stuck in this hole.
Yeah.
Next day, someone walks by and it's like a priest or a minister who walks by and they say, yeah, I've got a sermon Sunday at 9 about getting out of dark places. Make sure you make it to church. And they walk off. And then the third day, someone's walking past and you don't even know if it's worth asking for help anymore. And you look up and you barely whisper and help. And next thing you know, you see the person in the hole and they've got an arm around you and you look at them like they're crazy. You say, man, what are you doing now? We're both stuck.
Right.
And they say, no, I've been in this hole before and I know the way out.
Yeah.
And that's part of what I think we get the opportunity to do when we're in recovery is try to help people out of the dark places. Like it's the way to do that is to get somebody who's done it and to get somebody to walk through it with you. And it's like, and thank God I don't have to do that alone because I tried and I couldn't.
Right. I did too.
And I had people jump in that hole with me, put an arm around me and say, buddy, you don't see it in you, but we love you. Because there was nothing redeemable in me when I got sober.
Right.
I couldn't see a single thing. And they said, we love you. Let's get you help.
Yeah, I love
That's
that.
beautiful, man. There's one thing that I'd like to add to that because everyone shared something that they've heard someone share in a meeting, right? Or an analogy. Right. So when it comes to holes, because you could add this one to yours because this would fit so perfectly with what you're saying.
Awesome.
But, there was an old timer in a meeting in Santa Rosa, California, and after I got sober, I was still living in California. I came here to get treatment. I went back there before moving here about 4 months later back here, and they talked about there was a newcomer that talked about like how deep his hole was, and then the old timer kind of chimed in and he talked about. He didn't argue with him, but he'd explained his hole, and it was clearly so much deeper, the one that he came out of. And he's like, you know what? The thing is, no matter how deep the hole is that we go into, doesn't matter how deep, 1,000,000 miles long, 10 feet, we all have the same. There's a ladder that gets us out, and it only has 12 rungs on it. And it's the 12 steps.
Yeah.
No matter how deep it is. So it's like that guy that comes in the hole with you, there's that ladder, that ideally someone in AA would provide you, which is the 12 steps. And you just one at a time, you get out. Doesn't matter how deep that hole is.
I couldn't agree more. It dawned on me. I was sober a year. I'd worked the steps a couple of times. I still stay active in the steps. And I was sober a year and I was reading How It Works, which we read at the beginning of almost every meeting. And it says, here are the steps we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery. And it was like, I had this like acid moment in a meeting, if you will, because it's just like, whoa, wait a minute. These are the suggestions. There's only 12 of them.
Right.
I'm always told take suggestions. I found the suggestions. Like I was ready to go tell everybody, like, I don't know why I was so slow motion and it dawned on me.
No, that's a good point.
Oh yeah, this is what's suggested. Yeah. Okay, good.
Yeah, it's right here. It's listed. It's right here listed out for me.
Yeah.
Those little moments always happen to me with like little platitudes that they say in recovery or meetings where it's like, one day at a time, or it works if you work it, or faith without works is dead, just whatever things people say. And it's like, you hear it so often, or even the Serenity Prayer.
Sure.
There's one day, it was pretty recently, a couple months ago, where I heard the Serenity Prayer. I'm like, that is everything.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Summed up in that one prayer. I hear it all the time and I say, yeah, right. But it's like summed up, right?
You're so right.
Exactly.
Give me the strength God grant me the strength to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and then the wisdom to know the difference between the two. That's it.
Between the two.
That's
and
it.
There's always little moments that happen where it's like, or even like it works if you work it. God, if I actually put in the work, it'll work. And it's like, so there's a reason why we say all these things, but there's moments of realization where it cuts through, whatever fog it is in our mind and really hits home and it, makes sense. And I love that.
That's why that repetition is so important, and why I love the way the program's designed, because we finally get like each time every meeting I'm at, I'll hear something that I've heard before that I'm like, ooh,
that's
deep. That's deep.
Yeah.
And then I'll share it with someone else. Like, yeah, they say that every meeting.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I know, dude. I pay attention in the meetings. I'm just saying, like, it's pretty powerful, huh?
Yeah.
And then they'll come back 3 weeks later being like, oh, dude, you're right. Like, dude, I'd heard that before, but wow.
Yeah.
It's just.
I had one of those things happen to me just a couple months ago about the Serenity Prayer. I didn't actually realize in the Serenity Prayer, the first thing I'm praying for is serenity.
Yeah. Grant
Like,
me this
I always thought
serenity.
it was to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, wisdom to know the difference. And I'm like, wait a
Well,
minute.
that's just a
I'm
prepositional
praying
phrase.
first
Two,
for
serenity.
serenity
To
Yeah.
accept,
so
yeah.
that I can have that, so that I can put everything else in place. And suddenly it just, like, for me, this, what the 12 steps has been and what the program has been in my life is a path to freedom. And I work with people, and I've sponsored folks, and they always ask if they've got to do this or have to do that, or do I have to put everything down? I'll say, man, how free do you want to be?
Right.
Because
Yeah.
today I get the opportunity to walk this world of free, man. At the beginning of this year, I got laid off from the job that I had. I actually got laid off twice in like a 3-week period.
Same
ti-
company, two different companies. Okay, gotcha.
First time laid off sober.
Right.
Like, this was February. And I'm in a meeting about a month later, and like I got a job at another place, got a job at ARDU, like, which I was asked about earlier. I love ARDU. Like, I'm
Right.
so grateful to be there, and got a job there. And it was a month later, I was sitting in a meeting, and I realized that I'd been laid off twice. I was so worried about how I was going to provide for my family, all these stressors and all these fears coming up. And it was in the meeting a month later that I realized that I walked through all of that, and I did not think of drinking.
Yeah.
I did not think of taking a drug. And I thought, man, what a gift. Like, what a gift that recovery gives me. It actually gives me the tools
True freedom.
to deal with what's in front of me, as opposed to try to escape it. And I walked through it, and I walked through it a free man. And I didn't even realize that was happening until a month later. And then I'm like, I'm in this meeting, I'm sitting on the couch. It's a noon meeting. I'm crying.
Yeah.
So I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. Like, really? Thank you, God.
Absolutely.
Couldn't believe it. Yes.
Because you had every
absolutely.
excuse to use. I mean,
Yeah.
we only need one, and we
Yeah.
can make it. I mean, I could like these
But I have
two
some
remote
good
controllers
ones.
are not the same. Like, I like things to be even. You know what I mean?
I'm gonna go use.
I'm gonna go use.
Yeah.
Like, anything. Like, we
Right.
can make anything out of it. And getting laid off a job is a serious thing.
Yeah.
So to have that not even cross your mind is something pretty special, man.
Super grateful for it.
And it shows you're working your program and that you're doing the things you need to be doing.
Yeah, with a lot of grace, man.
Clearly, and
Like,
humility.
if I can do it, like, I'm pretty convinced if I can make this work, like, I don't know, I'm convinced anybody can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I was a guy that my younger brother, I've got a brother who's 4 years more, he's got 7 years sober. So he was 4 years sober when I got into recovery. And he's been such a light for me. He helped me get into recovery. And he was talking about this conversation he was having with another brother of mine as my life was falling apart, which it had done just consistently for like 14 years. And he was talking to the brother, and he said, man, this might be the straw that breaks the camel's back for John. Another brother looked at him and said, man, I don't think that camel's back will ever break. And for me, I was a guy who was just going to hold on to what I was doing because it was so important for me to be right. It was so important for people not to know what a mess I had become. Like, for me, I was just going to hold on to it till the bitter end. And by something, like I said, that prayer changed things to a point where I was actually willing to look at my life and get right sized and realize what was going on in my world, and then start handling it.
Right.
But I was one of those guys where that camel's back was never going to break.
Mm-hmm.
And like I say, so
Were you extremely defensive?
oh, bro,
I was going to say, because it
Oh
sounds
my
familiar.
gosh.
So
Yeah.
oh my gosh, I remember well, I don't think I can say this on the air, but I remember a counselor, she was pushing my buttons initially, and she said, what would you tell me if I'm a guy? And I just finally just folded my arms and said, I tell you, you're messing with the wrong dude right now.
yeah,
Like I was just
yeah,
so defensive, like almost violently defensive.
yeah.
Okay.
No, I'm with you. I asked because you. I mean, I was so bad, like so badly defensive that you could tell me that I have a green plaid shirt on. You know what I mean? And I'd be like, well, first of all, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
Second of all, I'm more educated than you. Or first of all, you're wrong. Second of all, I'm more educated than you. Third of all, it's actually a yellow and blue mix with simply parallel and perpendicular lines on it.
Yeah.
You know, like I would just find some way to make you wrong, even though it's like, I mean, when I was at Odyssey, the program, I had 60 people in a room telling me the same thing. Like I was just trying to defend the fact that I was sneaky. Like I'm saying I'm not sneaky because someone had done something that I didn't do, but they're like, and so they're going around them. Could it be you? Like, are you sneaky? I'm like, of course I'm not sneaky.
Yeah.
They're like, you're in this program. You're an addict. You must be sneaky. And I'm thinking like, no. So I remember same thing, like you said, the person running the program at that time, like stood up, gave this whole like theory on what they thought happened. This really good piece of confrontation, like that was spot on about my character. And I remember I just stood up and I just went, Santiago, that was a great piece of confrontation. And sat down in Odyssey House. It is such a, like I said, military. Yeah. It's like it was like a militaristic hierarchy. Yeah. You do not say that to the general. You know what I mean? And so needless to say, I got put into limbo where I couldn't talk to anybody for 10 days. I had to write half the day. But anyway, my point is defensiveness, man. Like I could just read it in you when you were saying that, because and also you want to look perfect. Yeah. And when you've also accomplished all these things that everyone else looks at is like, you should have it together. You have every reason to have it together. Man, you got an MBA. You got, you've been in LSAC before. Like, you had your license, this and this. You should have it all together. But, we don't have it all together. And we don't like to
I was the same way in treatment, though. I remember I went to, 5-6 different treatment centers before I got sober this time 2.5 years ago. And there'd be so many times in groups where I'd just be like laughing and just not paying attention, or one-on-ones with a therapist or person leading the group, and like I would just pick them apart, and it's like, they'd point out something. I'm like, that's really funny. Like very hypocritical of you to say this while this is happening. This is this. And, it's like, I might be right, but like at what cost? Like, what am I trying to prove? And who's really in pain here?
Right.
And like, I was the one that wasn't getting sober. So it's like, what is it? Like, and it's so funny, these like little mental avenues we go down to try to hold on to some piece of ego or information. That reminds me of the story at Odyssey House where, something to do with the cookies. Where
I was actually just going to get into
that. You might have like eaten the Chips Ahoy in the pantry and people are like telling you about it. You did it. And you ate the cookies, but you're like, actually, I ate Oreos in the kitchen. Yeah. So I did not eat Chips Ahoy in the pantry. So you're going to argue that point to the death instead of just being like, oh, you're right, man. I did something I shouldn't have done.
Yeah, I ate some cookies I shouldn't have etten. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, right. I'm so glad you brought that up because it's so true. Like, and so I actively now like will seek. So I like to think that I'm not a defensive person. I try my hardest not to be, and it's exactly what Frank said. And that was the whole thing: is if someone is telling me something, and oftentimes I deal so well with I statements. We all do. All of us in recovery deal with. If someone comes with us with an I feel blank and a feeling word, we're so good at saying, hey, I apologize for doing this that made you feel that way, or I commit to do this or whatever. But when people come at you with a you this or you that, you this, I'm always like, it's so hard because it's all about them. Anything they're saying is all about them. But I'm like, what can I do to validate what they said? Just like Frank said, like, okay, part of what they're saying is accurate. Let me validate that part. And then let me actually internalize it and hear myself verbalize it. And then actually they do have a point. You know what I mean? If it's someone that loves me and they're giving me feedback, they usually do have a point. So why argue it? Yeah. But, it's that's
own it.
Just own it. Yeah. Just own it. That's our addiction creeping up if we don't.
Absolutely. Someone taught me the statement, like, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy?
Yeah.
And for me, I always just thought, like, my ego was so strong. I thought, man, I'm just going to be right. Like, I may be right to a point where I'm dead.
Yeah.
But like at my funeral, they're going to talk about how right I am.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm.
And only you think
where I'm going to get my relief.
Right.
Where the fact of the matter is like my focus today is not on right, because quite candidly, you look at my life and I can tell you, I really don't even know what's right or wrong for me. Right. Like I go through my whole life, like my world. I thought when I got into treatment, I thought everything was falling apart. I thought everything was wrong. I thought, okay, now your neighbors are going to know you're a drug addict and an alcoholic.
Who cares?
Kids are going to know the extreme of it. But this is
who
where
cares?
my mind was.
No, I know. I'm saying just that. In
your
terms
job's
of
gone. Like all these things, and
the things that matter so much to you,
so much to me. And what I found out is that I had no idea what was going on. I have no idea what's right or wrong for me. I thought that could be the worst thing that ever happened to me was me going to treatment. Turns out it was the absolute best.
Absolutely.
So.
Because everyone knew anyway.
Yeah, Well, that was the thing. It was like it was my secret, and I was the only one fooling me.
Right,
like exactly. Nobody believed that anymore. Yeah. It was just like, okay, you know what? I don't know what Dad's doing in the basement for the past 3 days.
Right,
like,
straight.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Seriously. Come up once the house is asleep to raid the pantry to go back down. I mean, come on.
To go hide. To go hide and isolate because you didn't want anyone to see that you were in pain, rather than just opening yourself up and being like, hey, I'm in pain. Whoever's willing to help, whoever's willing to come in that hole that you talked about, I'm willing to embrace.
Yeah.
You know?
It would have made it too real at the time, even though it was already real. I just couldn't see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's such a good thing, like Frank said, and when I was like, as Frank pointed out, I was like, ooh, because it just reminds me of just similarities that I've had, But he said, Frank's like, hell yeah, like the more things that are happening to you in quick succession, or it means you're getting far closer to having no other options, and you got to do whatever it takes. You know what I mean? And so,
absolutely, I love working in
they're
recovery.
the gifts of desperation.
The gift of desperation, and I love working in recovery, man, because I honestly believe I get a front row seat to the miracle show every day.
Yeah,
and it's like I just get to see these people who are so convinced their life's falling apart. Just like when Frank was kind of smiling when I was telling my story, like that's where I get. I'm like, oh yeah, now you've been tenderized enough for the music to start to be able to hear it, and it just becomes a beautiful thing.
No, absolutely.
We can go to a meeting anywhere in any
show something.
Meeting anywhere in any state, in any country. We can go to, and we can find a brother or a sister that understands us, that we could talk to like we've known for 30 years. You know what I mean? Because we all speak that same language, that universal language or universal music of recovery.
Well, and I think it's amazing. I think that's part of it. Like we can go anywhere, but sometimes I just sit and I just am so amazed at how and why AA works so well. Because if you think about it, it's not like going to a treatment center. It's like at AA, the inmates are literally running the asylum.
Yeah.
Like that's
1000%.
But the reason
it's one of the only organizations in the world where, it's like the upside down structure.
Yeah.
In terms of like, the hierarchy and where the power rests. And
no, absolutely. Yeah. But for me, I think the reason why it works is because like in the traditions, like what it talks about is like how it, like there's no one with ultimate authority. It's just how God reveals himself in our group conscience. Like when you're on a path and all the steps are geared to get you in contact with something bigger than you, that can provide you the help and support. And you see these people just getting well, like not just getting better, but getting well.
Yeah.
And it's like, you just know that there's something bigger than us at play here that is bringing it all together and that is truly in charge of this. And so for me, that's part of why I just love being in an AA. Like I love it when little kids are there.
Yeah,
like,
I do too.
And they're so loud and they're all over the place. But for me, it's just like that also is music, because that is like families that should not exist. Like get a chance to exist in Alcoholics Anonymous.
And it shows that there's transparency in that family. It's like they're not hiding anything from their kids. They're like, hey, come here. I got to go to my meeting because I'm an alcoholic or I'm an addict, and now your kids are going to call you out on your stuff if they start seeing you slip.
Well, and they're getting something out of it.
But the way you said families that shouldn't exist, you're right. Because most oftentimes, that shouldn't be a family. The alcoholic or addict should be dead. I mean, again.
Well, I'm sitting here with a podcast with 3 dead people.
Yeah. Right.
We're like sitting up acting like we're paying attention.
Right.
But we get an opportunity to try to help someone else today. And so I think I've said this before, even in this podcast, but for me, I felt like I suffered in silence for so long. Like I was just so stuck in my secrets and silent, that today I'm more than willing to recover out loud if I think it gives a chance for somebody to be, if it can be of service, if somebody can get something out of it, if it can help their journey, man, I'm all for it.
Yeah. Recover out loud, man. I like that. I like that statement a lot. Like that is such you used that earlier, and that stuck with me because it's so true. It's like Kalichi says, for those that have seen that drug addiction song, it says, I refuse to be anonymous. What I mean? It's like recover out loud.
Recover out loud.
Yeah. And we are just like walking miracles. And I love how
we are.
Just when you look at, you're talking about how we're 3 dead people here doing this. And to me, that's like the proof of like, the something greater than myself at work. Because I don't believe that with you, with all your knowledge and, your degrees and everything on the wall,
of a guy.
that after, 14, 15 years, that one day you decided to just pull yourself up by your bootstraps and change one thing that fixed it. Right. Or for me, it's like after all the years of the ups and downs and the jails and the homelessness and treatment centers and, almost losing my foot, that one day I was just like, I'll just do better. And then now I'm here. Like, I don't, it doesn't work that way.
Doesn't work that way.
Yeah, there's something greater at work once we just finally surrendered and then followed these simple directions.
Yeah.
And we try to emulate that, here at SOAR. And that's what I love about this program is, Dustin's been doing this for 10 years and he's been like, in and out of AA here and there. But then, when I went through the program and then started working with him and then running this thing with him, I'm like, dude, like you have these 12-step principles ingrained in the program and you didn't even know it.
Yeah, already they were there.
So it's like, and especially with the student to coach model, the reason why it works so well is like once people do well, like I'm a shining example of it, turn around and help the new guy coming in. Oh, let me show you about how we were living our lifestyle. Let me
you have sponsorship already built in, D.
Exactly. Yeah. There's so many beautiful things about that, right?
Well, the only way we
true.
keep it's when we give it away.
Yeah.
And I've found that like service is just such a key component to all of this. Like if I'm having a bad day, it's generally because I'm focused way too much on me.
Right.
Like in my way of getting out of that is by going and helping someone else. And
Mm-hmm.
while I'm in that, suddenly my day becomes so much better. And I think that, somebody told me this a while back and it makes complete sense to me that if you want to know God, like go get to know his kids, like be of service, go help his kids.
Yeah.
And that's
Well
how you'll
put.
get to know him better. And I think to the extent that we're able to do that, to the extent that we're able to give away what we've been given, is about the only way we get to keep it.
No, exactly.
You're so right.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely right. 100%. That's what we're trying to do today is simply give something, through this platform, through one of the platforms you guys are working on, and then give us anything. We're not here as experts on anything. So anyone always feel free to chime in as you do because we're always up here to learn something.
Some of my favorite days and moments, these days are when I'm wrong, because it's like I learned something, right? So it's like I think I've had this view or all along, and then oh wait, maybe I'm wrong. And instead of where in the past it would have been like I would have been pissed and then gotten angry about it
or defended
it, still try to prove how I was right. Like those are some of my favorite moments. I'm like, wow, I get to learn today and I get to change. How cool is that? Right?
I love learning new facts. It's hold on. There's a new fact that I think I have that we brought up eating. We have a few people that watch. I know that has struggled with eating disorders in the past, and it was something pretty interesting. That did you know that because there are 12 steps programs for eating disorders as well, and a lot of other things you can do. But
there's a million A programs out there. Right?
Yeah, there's a million 12 steps. But that 35% of everyone with substance use disorder has eating disorder. 35%. I mean, that's pretty wild. And then 50% of people with eating disorders have substance use disorders, which is essentially 9% of the population struggles with substance use disorder, general population. It's just unreal. So there's so many people out there that need help, and it's right there in front of you. If you're in the hole, just reach out.
It makes sense because at the base of it, it's not about what it looks like on the outside. It's not about how it manifests itself in, either I'm drinking every day or doing heroin every day. Like from the outside person, those look like two different things, or or maybe I'm have an eating disorder. Maybe I'm obese, or maybe I'm bulimic. And it's or maybe, I play video games all day, or maybe I'm addicted to porn, whatever.
Right.
Maybe I'm an asshole and just treat people like crap.
Right, yeah.
At the base of these, it's all really the same thing. It doesn't really matter how it manifests itself. And it's I've noticed it in myself. I wouldn't really say I have an eating disorder, but it's even in recovery, I lean on food heavily as a pleasure and reward system, right?
Sure.
Where it's on Sundays, it's oh, I'm going to sit down, watch football, and go hard in some dominoes.
Right.
Right. Or it's just the ways I
and it creates that dopamine, right?
These frameworks through I look at things. So I can easily see how that
the comorbidity
makes sense. But at the base of it, it's all about what's going on up here and in here spiritually, right?
Right. Well, and so many of the things I'll learn. So shout out to the amazing Brittany Sanders out there, dietitian on a mission out of Oklahoma down south. But she gave me those stats, and but it's amazing the different parallels they have. Like LT has on his show, the two different people. He's got Leonard and Ted, right? And they look at it as the eating disorder and then themselves, and they'll usually name the eating disorder. And I know some people that will name their addiction. Who am I talking to? The addict or you?
Right.
And so it's it's and then like you said, all the process addictions, gambling. I think we had a gentleman on here that wasn't it John? Wasn't that his name, LT or Jake? It was John, who was gambling recovery, eating disorder recovery, and substance use recovery. Pretty amazing. So it's whatever you're struggling with, make sure you reach out to get help. And School of Addiction Recovery is certainly a great place to learn that, as is Recovery and Addict. You're talking about a whole community that's going worldwide now, that you have to tune into. So
can I just add something?
Please.
To that?
Please.
I think that's
why you're here, man.
Oftentimes, for me at least, I had a hard time towards the end actually thinking that I was an addict or an alcoholic, because in my mind I knew better. Like I
Yeah.
knew better,
Yeah.
but somehow I kept doing this. Um, and the amazing part is with this disease, it's the only disease that I'm aware of that somebody can get where they try to convince themselves they don't have it.
Right.
I'm a guy who was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, and the disease of addiction and alcoholism is what's almost killed me.
Yeah.
And
Wow. That's a good way to look at it.
and the amazing thing to me is that I kept trying to fight a disease with all this knowledge and self-will.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work that way. So really, if you're struggling, um, you're not a bad person.
Not at
You're
all.
not a bad person trying to be good. You're a sick person, and there's a way to be well. And today, that's one of the biggest gifts is I understand this disease well enough today to know that the things I did may look like bad on the outside, but it wasn't because I was a bad person.
Not at all.
It's because I'd just been so sick for so long. And now I get an opportunity to be well.
Yeah.
And if somebody's struggling, what I'd like that, like what the one thing I'd want to leave with you is like, we get well together. Reach out and let's
That we recovered better together. Like
absolutely
it's so true.
reach out, because this isn't a disease you can pull yourself out of. And you're not expected to.
Right.
And the moment you start bringing something bigger than you into your life and other people, like you're just going to get a front row seat to the miracle show. It's going to be amazing to watch how
I
your
love it.
world's going to change in ways that you don't even think are possible. And it's all because you're dealing with this disease and you're not dealing with the bad behavior.
Right.
Mhm.
You're getting to the root of what's going on.
Yeah. It's those
Yeah.
5 whys. If you go down to it, you'll get down to what's
Yeah.
actually going on.
But you're
Yeah.
not able to see that on your own.
Right. No, you can't. You have to have it through the perspective of someone else, So I would challenge anyone that's out there that's watching this, that's struggling, whether you're watching it live or whether you watch it later, reach out to someone that cares about you and share with them something you're struggling with that you have not yet shared with them, and watch what happens. And if you're willing to walk in one of the rooms of recovery, man, regardless of what the addiction is that you're dealing with, and don't even worry about the label. That kept me away from AA for so long. So I'm like, I'm not an alcoholic. It's all just behaviors. I know now that I'm an alcoholic and an addict, but don't let those get you stuck. Go into a room, ask for help, or just someone that loves you. Share something that you're struggling with, that you're just letting in there, because it's literally killing you inside. It really is, especially if you're dealing with any one of these diseases that we're dealing with.
No, I love that. Well, thanks for your time today. We really appreciate
thanks,
having you
man.
on,
Appreciate
John.
you having me. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I want to shout out again ARDU Recovery. You guys are doing awesome stuff down there
Yeah.
in Provo.
Look up-
Amazing detox and residential program, and it fits like kind of with the SOAR model too, where you're talking about mind, body, and spirit, right?
Oh,
It's
yeah.
just a wholesome, balanced recovery model, which is amazing.
We have a lot of fun. We've got like a ropes course. We have a sweat lodge. We go out in the community. We go hikes.
Oh wow, I didn't know you guys had all
there's
that.
a
I need to
lot
come
of-
tour.
and it's beautiful. So it's simply just looking up ARDU online, ARDU, which is Gaelic, and it means rise up.
That's
And
awesome.
so
I didn't
we
know
help
that.
people get to a point where they're able to rise back
Yeah.
up.
All right, now medical detox or social detox.
It's a medical detox.
Okay, gotcha. So you can take alcohol and benzos.
Together
Okay,
with a history
wow.
of seizures.
Oh, okay, good to know.
Yeah. No
Good
problem.
to know.
Mhm.
We
Good
got
to
that.
know. Excellent. Very good. I'm gonna come check you out, because I'm an interventionist as well, and so
Yeah, would
you
love
know,
to have you down.
and I love I'm all as we were just at the open house for Healing Sciences Retreat. Amazing social detox out there, and when it comes to benzos and alcohol, that's something they certainly stay away from. And so, and I like not having to go to the traditional hospitals,
Yeah.
So
Oh,
I want to definitely come tour you, because ropes
that's
course
great.
sweat lodge, like,
Yeah.
man, I've never heard of that at a detox
man,
slash
it looks
residential.
like
And
you're
this
walking
guy
into
there.
a
and
spa.
this guy and John's
Take
gonna
us
be there.
that
You're gonna get all this
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
I get to run a group there once a week.
See,
And
exactly.
it is just, it's a beautiful thing it's like literally my favorite day of the week is Thursday.
I can tell, because
Because
you know what
I
you
run-
said? You said I get to. You didn't say I have to.
Oh,
You
no,
said
I
I get to.
Right.
And I get to go down there on Thursday and I get to run a group with the people who are going through the residential part of the program and connect with everyone in detox. And you go in there and it's like you're walking into a spa. We have like a sensory deprivation tank.
Oh,
we
wow.
do oxygen therapy. We do amino acids. We've got a vibrational acoustic lounge. The rooms are comfortable and beautiful. So if you just look up ARDU online, it's ardurecoverycenter.com.
Sure. I've seen you online. I
Yeah.
just want to come see it
Yeah.
in person.
Please do.
And just come
Would
visit
love
and
to
grab
have you.
lunch.
For
Exactly.
sure.
Yeah.
I'd love that.
Let's do it.
Well,
Yeah.
thanks again, John, and all you guys listening and chiming in. It's awesome to see your involvement, and we definitely appreciate your time too. And we don't do this just to hear ourselves talk. It's about how we're helping other people, and hopefully someone heard something today to that helps them get through the day, or that helps them help someone else, or even reach out if you're in that dark hole like you were talking about. So
Absolutely.
definitely. Well, we'll see you next Saturday at 11.
Hey, and happy 0th birthday to Jersey Jameson,
Thank you.
Frank's daughter,
Exactly.
yesterday, last night.
Beautiful.
So
Beautiful.
I'm so happy for
Yeah.
you, man.
Thanks,
I
guys.
had to end on that
It's
note,
hard
'cause
to
that's
describe,
special.
man. But
I know you're
it's
going
special.
right back there as soon as you
I
can.
gotta go see her again. I miss her, man.
I know you do. Of course you do. Go back, Daddy
I
Frank.
love it. I love
awesome.
it.
All right, Poppy.
Awesome. Love you guys. Thanks for tuning in.
Love
Appreciate
you
it.
guys.